We have Mr. Prithviraj Chavan of the Maharashtra Congress here connected with us as well. Mr. Chavan, good evening. Thank you for being with us. The Congress, of course, is asking for strict action to be taken where lapses have been seen. In fact, directly blaming the union minister in charge of that department, the Union Petroleum Minister, that he stepped down because that's where the buck stops.
Well, what has happened is very tragic. But it raises a lot of questions. Now, some protocol was breached, some SOP was not followed, and somebody messed up. The union government has appointed an inquiry, but the point is the ONGC was the main employer, although they were all subcontractors. So finally, under the labor law, ONGC is the main employer. Now, by appointing a committee under Petroleum Ministry, I think there's a conflict of interest straight away, because ONGC is a company under Petroleum Ministry, and if they are at fault, would Petroleum Ministry be the right agency to probe the whole incident? I would have thought that an independent inquiry, maybe under Navy or maybe under Defense Ministry or Home Ministry, should have conducted the inquiry, not Petroleum Ministry.
Right, but Mr. Chavan, given the fact that an inquiry has been called in already, several survivors are going to be interviewed with respect to this as well. We have already spoken to some of the survivors here saying that it seems that this was an individual decision of the captain of the boat concerned who refused to take into account concerns and kept moving further deep into the sea.
The point is, when the Coast Guard and the other marine authorities have warned of a very severe kind of cyclone on 11th and 13th, that should have been complied with. Keeping almost 600 people, 300 on the P-305 and the two other the boats, was unthinkable. When the cyclone of the severest kind has been called and everybody has returned on the shore, what business did they have to keep the residents of that P-303 there? They shouldn't have been there at all. I mean, ONGC cannot shirk off his responsibility, cannot blame the captain alone. Of course, captain would be responsible. But why ONGC, who is the ultimate employer, not insist on all the people going back shore?
Okay.
They could have been easily removed. Even if at the cost of the barge was not moved, because it was difficult to. I understand that barge would be difficult to move because there are, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 anchors, and each anchor takes about a couple of days to come up, and it requires tugboats and others. So people have been evacuated. I mean, whatever happens to the boat, people.
Yes, evacuation should have been done well in time.
Yeah. Of course, the inquiry will find all
Absolutely.
that out.
Mr. Chavan,
why Petroleum Ministry?
All right. Yes, please stay on with us here. Basis on what you've just said and what the Congress is charged here on this as well. Let's also get in a word here from the BJP. Mr. Vishwas Pathak connected with us here as well. Mr. Pathak, good evening. A lot of questions here being asked with respect to where the lapses are, but more importantly, whose responsibility. If the parent company of all of these projects here was the ONGC, and the ONGC that comes under the Union Petroleum Ministry, there's a lot more for the central government and the union minister per se to be responding on this.
It was a very unfortunate incident, and some people have lost their lives, though majority of the people could be saved. However, a very high-level committee inquiry has already been instituted, and the outcome and the lapses, whichever lapses are occurred because of whosoever's fault, that will come to know. However, there is one should not jump to the conclusion that it is because of so and so like that. And this Congress has got developed a very different approach, maybe part of their toolkit. Whenever something happens, like ONGC, which is a central government company, ONGC means Oil Ministry means Mr. Modi. Ultimately, they want to somehow blame Mr. Modi for each and everything. If somebody is really responsible, he will be held responsible and he will be punished accordingly. But it will be too early to really jump to the conclusion that it is because of the oil ministry or central government this has happened. Rather, we should appreciate.
No. Mr. Pathak, it's not about blaming the central government or blaming the Prime Minister here on this, but it's also about the ministry in charge or the minister in charge of this area, of this department, be speaking up. And we haven't heard. Even the government, though, has called in an inquiry, and in the course of this, we would get in some answers here. But a lot to be spoken here on this as well, because lives have been lost.
That this incident is very serious.
Please hold that thought, because we're getting in big breaking inputs here. The death toll from the sunken barge has now climbed up to 49. Now, this has consistently been climbing up here. We were just saying that this death toll is 37, but now it has been confirmed and further climbing up to 49 here as well. This is unfortunate, but as more hours pass by and the status of those still unknown as the Indian Navy continues with its rescue operations here, to find those surviving this is going to be difficult here. So the death toll to that now has further gone up to 49. Mr. Pathak, you were saying, because this is at the end of the day, innocent lives that have been lost, evacuations from the barge that should have been done well in time, warnings from across all systems, authorities that came in starting right from the 11th of May that this is an approaching cyclone. Arabian Sea would be affected. Why were people found on the barge off the Mumbai coast?
Yeah, I fully agree. There are loss of lives. However, it will be too early to jump to the conclusion that what is the reason. Because all these captains and all that, they are very seasoned people. They take their own call on the ground. And sometimes this error of judgment might happen, or there could be some other lapses also. But that is a matter to be decided under inquiry, and inquiry has already been set up.
Right. Absolutely. But Mr. Pathak, error of judgment could be for one vessel, one barge. A lapse could be for one case here. Here we're looking at 4 barges and 1 tugboat. Where were these instructions coming from to not listen to these warnings?
Therefore, this high-level committee has already been instituted. They will find out what are the lapses.
Mr. Chavan, do you think there needs to be more done right now? Because do you think that this is a very casual uptake here? Lives have been lost. It is unfortunate. We have constituted a committee. An inquiry is going to happen. Investigations here on this are going to happen. But this is not just a mere lapse. This is a very clear sign that warnings were not taken seriously. And this is across barges, across vessels of what we've seen. A huge number of people that were left to remain on board within amidst the choppy waters.
You see, first of all, let's get facts right. This was an extremely severe cyclone. And there is no doubt about that. There cannot be any higher category at that. Number 2, moving people out of the barges or taking the barges back onto shore would be an expensive proposition. Somebody tried to save the money. Now, ultimately, ONGC was the ultimate employer. They employed Afcons as a subcontractor. Afcons, in turn, hired a accommodation barge from some other company. Some other company was provided the hoteling services, the lodging, boarding services there. And yet another agency was supplying manpower to ONGC. There's a completely long chain of authority there. But under the marine rules, somebody has to be responsible in case of a severe cyclone like the Tauktae cyclone. Who flouted the orders? There is a standard operating procedure. So my point is, since ultimately it is ONGC who is the ultimate employer, under the labor laws, the ultimate employer is whether the subcontract or whatever it is, the ultimate employer is ONGC. Now you institute an inquiry under Ministry of Petroleum. Now, Ministry of Petroleum, who owns ONGC, I mean, there is a clear conflict of interest. I think rightfully, an independent inquiry from people who are not connected with the affair at all. ONGC and Petroleum Ministry are connected. So somebody like Navy or somebody like Ministry of Home Affairs or somebody like Defense Minister, somebody should have conducted an inquiry. They could have got the DG Shipping and other people on board. But we yet still don't know who flouted
Okay.
the written order. There's a standard protocol, the standard operating procedure in case of a severe cyclone. Who flouted that?
Right.
If it is, the responsibility comes to ONGC. I'm not
Okay.
sure whether the committee chaired by the petroleum minister, officer of the petroleum ministry, would take harsh action against the ONGC. The lives have been lost. Now you can offer some compensation.
That's right.
To
So
people.
there needs to
I
be
mean,
an independent authority here.
there should be an independent inquiry by an
Absolutely.
independent authority, because
Yes, an
we're talking
independent authority to be investigating this here, and families affected that would need to be compensated here as well. Of course, after it's established who is exactly responsible for this mishap here. Mr. Chavan, Mr. Pathak, appreciate you speaking with us here on this. We'll have to leave it at that. And with that, we're also slipping into a very tiny breather here on very unfortunate news. As we said, the death toll to this has further climbed up to 49. Stay on with us. We're back in just a bit. And we're continuing with the focus here on this, this extremely unfortunate development here that has come in. The death toll here to this has further risen to 49. Remember, these have been ongoing rescue operations by the Indian Navy off the coast of Mumbai here ever since the Cyclone Tauktae struck, and these barges were left stranded with several people, total of about 700 people on board across 4 barges and 1 tugboat here. Now the death toll has further gone up to 49. We've of course been discussing here on the authority responsible for this. How were warning signals for a very strong cyclonic storm overlooked in this manner? Why were people not evacuated well in time? Let's get in an expert voice here on this. We have Commander V.K. Jaitley of INS Virat, Indian Navy, connected with us. Appreciate you, sir, being with us here. While an inquiry that has been set up here on this as well, there is of course a very ugly blame game on a very complicated system of companies that have been contracted, hired, who were in charge of this project, and the parent company being ONGC, and then the ONGC being part of the Union Petroleum Ministry, which is in the under the government of India here. So questions of course here being asked on where the lapse was. In your understanding, who is to be blamed here on this mishap?
The first warning was given on May 11th. Then second warning was again given on May 13th
Yes.
by Coast Guard. I think that was the time they should have taken it seriously. But probably somebody in the hierarchy, he felt, hey, this is another like any other cyclone. But it was not like normal cyclone. It was much stronger what they expected. They didn't think that it will be so strong that even hard anchors will also give way. So 2 of the barges, their anchor just came out, and the other 2, they were drifting along with the anchors itself. And it's really sad that Papa 305 just sank. And we have lost so many people. Some are still missing. But one thing which comes out of this is one of the biggest rescue operations done by Indian Navy and the Coast Guard, where so many lives have been saved. But yes, we do feel very sad about those whom we have lost. This inquiry will definitely bring out some of the glaring lapses which have taken place. And these are, let me tell you, these are the human judgmental errors. Somebody, somewhere, he took the wrong decision of not going back alongside.
Yes, but Commander Jaitley, these are collectively wrong decisions because each barge has a captain, including the tugboat that has now been added to that list here as well. And these were collectively wrong errors, judgment of errors perhaps taken here, because there has been a very, very unfortunate waste of lives here in this manner, a loss of lives with hapless families, some of them who are still waiting for updates to come in on those on whose status is still not being updated by the Indian Navy. Commander Jaitley, many thanks for speaking to us here on this. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it at that, but we will continue asking questions here on who's been responsible for this glaring lapse which has turned fatal for many. Thank you for being with us here.